Jumpin In on Manx Radio.
With Howard and Chris Kane.
Hello.
Good evening.
And welcome. Here we are again, Saturday night at Manx Radio Towers, 9 o'clock. And of course, it is time for Jumpin' In, the best in modern and contemporary jazz from myself, H.
And from me, Chris. Yes, welcome along to this week's Jumpin' In on one of my favourite weekends of the year when time is on our side. Yes, the clocks go back. So you can listen to the show, then get another bottle or a cup of tea or a packet of biscuits, then listen again to the podcast after everyone's gone to bed, and you can still have an extra hour in bed in the morning. So what's been your swinging somnolent soundtrack this week, H?
Well, speaking of swinging, it's the end of the summer. Very appropriate, really, because we're into winter now. Espen Eriksson's trio, the latest from them. Very fine it is too. A bit of a young birthday boy with Romain Collin. And what might be the last, sadly, from Keith Jarrett.
And from me, wet, typical and funky. And a conundrum to start. Here's Bipolar Sisyphus. was the Hans Anselm Band from Berlin, which reminds me, nächste Woche haben wir ein Deutschland special. Yes, another of our country-focused specials featuring German jazz, although we may stray over the border ein bisschen. And the track was Bipolar Sishovers, taken from the band's 2017 debut, Kreisenfrequenz, which is, I'm sure you know, is when W equals 2 pi over T.
Yep.
The 18-piece started life as the Hans Anselm Quartet, but despite reading up the lineup and translating it from German, I could not find the elusive Mr. Anselm, but I did find the answer. Hans Anselm is our imaginary, somewhat crazy friend who has accompanied the band from the start, says guitarist, composer and conductor Benedikt Schnitzler. And maybe it's got a better ring than the Benedikt Schnitzler, I can't even say it, than the Benedikt Schnitzler big band. They've just released their third album. That was their first one, and maybe we can catch up with that on another time.
I wonder if Benedict's related to Conrad. He used to like Conrad Schnitzler.
Von Berlin? Yeah, well, it could be.
Could be. You never know. I don't know how common a name it is. Espen Eriksson is a name we have featured once or twice on the programme. He was certainly at the London Jazz Festival 2 years ago, I think it was, down in the Pizza Express. I can't remember whether... No, he was on his own then. But he'd also played just before that, I think, with Andy Shepherd as well. The trio formed in 2007, their debut out in 2010. End of Summer is their fifth, and they're since, or in between those times, they've toured on 4 continents and have become a fairly popular live act with their own take of, well, it's sort of, you know, it's part Jarrett, definitely more than a nod towards EST. And, well, have a listen and see what you make of it. Here's a track from their latest, End of the Summer, and this one is called Dancing Demons. I'm liking this one more and more the more I hear it. I must admit, it's sort of been in and out of the CD player for the last couple of days. Not necessarily a car record. We often talk about this when we're listening to jazz and saying, right, is it a car track or not? And there are some albums which lend themselves, I think, to be listened to as you're driving along, and some which most definitely don't. They're either too quiet, too introspective, or something you really need to listen to rather than actually, having on. Whereas you get other stuff which is obviously, really swing orientated, or it's got a good beat to it, and you can happily have it going whilst you're driving. I don't think it's one of those necessarily. This one, End of Summer, Espen Eriksson Trio on the Runa gramophone. And thanks very much to the boys for sending that over to us. Espen himself on piano, of course. Lars Thomas Jenset on double bass. Andres Bai on drums. And as it says in the notes, it's a curious one. There's some notes with it, which is just as well, because it's one of those ones on the actual CD, even though it's a gatefold that opens up, other than telling us that all selections are by Espen, giving us the names of the three guys, and the recording. In fact, it doesn't even give the specific recording details. It just has the year on it, the track names, and that is it. There is nothing else, as far as I can see, to say anything about the inspiration or the rest of the band or whatever. But there is, like I said, separate press notes, happily, which tell us a little bit more about how the music relies on melodic and lyrical instruments and a less is more approach, and often credited for its unique voice within today's jazz scene. To quote the BBC in their review of the trio's second album, a wonderfully plaintive jazz record abandoned to the lost art of melodic minimalism, stripped back and beautifully near bare. No smoke and mirrors, the graceful chemistry of superb musicians at the top of their game. I'm not going to disagree.
Oh, very nice indeed. And I'm not sure I agree with you about the car thing. I mean, there's a difference between windows down, roof open, bombing down the road with something.
Yeah.
But
anything introspective, it just doesn't think,
well,
it's something really quiet where you have lovely little. Sometimes you have that
you
sort
have
of sound.
A decent drive though, and it's quiet, and the roads are quiet, and late night. You got to drive 20 miles or 15 miles, whatever it is.
I'll give you that one. Yes, if it's something a quiet drive late at night, maybe. Yeah.
Well, after the widely acclaimed 2018 Facing Dragons, pianist Christian Sands returns with a new release on Mac Avenue, and very fine it is too. I'll let you guess the title.
I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend. water, my friend. Be water, my friend.
Be Water, the title of the pianist Christian Sand's latest album, which sees him reunited with bassist Yasushi Nakamura. Don't try saying that late in the evening. Although this time with Clarence Penn on the drums, and also along with Marcus Strickland, who was on his last album, Sean Drone on sax, Sean Jones on trumpet, Steve Davis on trombone. And in fact, a part of the album also features a string quartet, and I don't think it's that Steve Davis either. It might be a different one on trombone. Marvin Sewell, the guitarist, also guests on it. To think he's only in his 30s, definitely want to watch. Very, very nice album indeed, and thanks to Mac Avenue for sending that.
Indeedy, you're listening to Jumpin' In on Manx Radio with myself, H, and Chris, bringing you all the best sounds, of course, in modern and contemporary jazz from around the world. Here's a birthday boy for you. love that gong at the end there, or like a tam-tam, where you sort of hit the centre and you have that dong sound. Wonderful. Used to great effect there, very effectively, by Romain Collin on his album Press Enter on Act. A visionary composer, extraordinary jazz pianist, and very bright young rising star in the jazz world, according to John Weber of NPR in the States. Who am I to disagree, as I often say. Clockwork, that track was called. Romain Collin does the piano, leading from the keyboard, sound design and programming. In the accompaniment by Luke Curtis, double bass, so yes, in the company of Kendrick Scott takes the drums, and then in various places through the album, you've got Mino Sinello, who used to play, of course, with Miles Davis back in the day, in the 1980s, doing some percussion, Megan Rose on some vocals. Jean-Michel Pilk, listed as just playing whistles, interestingly.
Whistling, not actually playing whistles.
No, it's actually down as whistles.
Oh,
whistling.
He is whistling. He's a great siffleur.
Graham, maybe it's a misprint on that. I don't think he features in that one at all. Graham McMurray on guitar, I don't think we heard him there either. And Laura Metcalf on cello. I do think we had a bit of Mino on that one. And obviously Kendrick at the drums. But it was a good one, that. 2015. But it is playing it today because it is his birthday today, I think he is. 1976 he was born, thereabouts.
Very good. And now, another name with nearly 90 albums, either as a lead or a sideman, is remarkable, isn't it? Puerto Rican saxophonist Miguel Zenon obviously enjoys playing in different settings, but he still managed to retain his original quartet for more than 10 years. So when he's not touring or teaching, let's hear something from his 2017 release, Typico. Here's Academia. nice indeed. That was Academia from Miguel Zenon's 2017 album Tipico, which reminds me a little bit of Marius Nasset in a way, with his regular quartet of pianist Luis Perdomo, bassist Hans Glasch-Visnig and Henry Cole on the drums. And I think fairly obvious that here's a band who know each other very well, as you can sense that almost telepathic communication. When not recording or touring, Zenon has been teaching at the New England Conservatory, and Academia was inspired by his advanced students, who he says they really like to take him to task in musical challenge. Go students, I say.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Go Keith Jarrett, I say. I mean, sadly, we heard the news, and I think it was an interview with him in the New York Times only recently, where he says, yes, he's had a couple of strokes. I think this is in 2018, in fact, and has basically lost the use of one hand and was pretty much saying, I doubt that I'll ever perform in public again. And you think it was only a year or two back, the Standards Trio was still going strong. Here we are now, 2020, towards the end. We've just lost Gary Peacock, the bass player, of course, and it sounds like Keith Jarrett won't be playing in any format, possibly ever again, which is terribly sad news. Happily, a huge recorded legacy, of course. There's one just come out on ECM, which is a solo outing, not with the Standards Trio or anyone else. It's just literally one of his ones where it's just part 1, part 2, part 3. The Budapest concert's been getting good reviews. Very fine. Let's hear part 6.
Hello, I'm Magnus Öström, and you're listening to Jumpin In at Manx Radio.
Dave Douglas, High Risk. He just had 2 CDs out over the years. Wonderful live set they did at the Pizza Express one time. I think I've got it on sort of a bootleg, if such a thing is allowable these days. Marvellous stuff. Etiquette. Before that, the Budapest concert, Keith Jarrett on ECM. I'm sure there'll be more re-releases of Keith Jarrett, but sadly, by the sound of it, we might have heard the last of his new concerts, as it were, since he's suffered 2 strokes. Very sad.
Well, where does the time go? A common question musicians ask themselves. Hopefully you've enjoyed the show. Don't forget, we'll be having a Germany special next week.
Yeah.
Es ist fantastisch, as I'm sure you'll agree. But for now, we leave you in the capable hands of bassist Orlando Fleming with Philip Dijak on trumpet, Will Vinson alto, Sean Wayland on the keys, and Kush Abade Nate Wood on the drums. And if you think that sounds electrifying, you'd be right. Taken from their recent released romantic funk, The Unfamiliar, out now on Whirlwind. Here's FOMO Blues.
Danke. Auf Wiedersehen.
Also, tschüss.